Shocked. They are simply stunned. Stunned that we have a president who keeps his campaign promises. President Trump today signed 2 new executive orders on border security and immigration enforcement, 2 of the president's priorities.
For too long, your officers and agents haven't been allowed to properly do their jobs. But that's all about to change. From here on out, I'm asking all of you to enforce the laws of the United States of America. They will be enforced and enforced strongly.
White House counselor Kellyanne Conway is our special guest here tonight. We have a lot to discuss. President Trump vowing action on Chicago violence. The president fulfilling campaign promises at breakneck speed, never before seen in our nation's capital. Among our guests tonight, David Avella, Charlie Hurt, Gail Trotter. And on Wall Street, also a historic day. The Dow Jones Industrial Average closing above 20,000 for the first time ever. The NASDAQ and S&P indexes also at record highs, all the result of the Trump rally on Wall Street. And good evening, everybody. President Trump following through today on more of his campaign promises. The president signing 2 executive orders while visiting the Department of Homeland Security. Laser focused on protecting our borders, putting America first. The first executive order directs Homeland Security to build a wall along the border with Mexico, to hire more Border Patrol agents, to create detention space for illegal immigrants on the border, eliminate the catch and release program, and prioritize the prosecution of criminal offenders. The second withholds certain federal funding from sanctuary cities, enhances immigration and customs enforcement to arrest, detain, and remove illegal immigrants, giving the State Department more tools with which to repatriate criminal illegal immigrants. And it restores the Secure Communities program, targeting criminal illegal immigrants for deportation and removal.
For too long, your officers and agents haven't been allowed to properly do their jobs. You know that, right? Do you know that? Absolutely. But that's all about to change.
All of this comes as top officials of the Mexican government, including the foreign minister and economy secretary, visited the White House late today as part of 2 days of talks to smooth the relations with the Trump administration and to lay the groundwork ahead of President Trump's meeting with Mexican President Peña Nieto Tuesday. Joining me now to discuss the president's executive orders on border security, on sanctuary cities, and much more is Kellyanne Conway, White House counselor to the president. Kellyanne, great to have you with us. And I have to say, your administration, this is a presidency that is moving at breakneck speed, as I said at the outset.
Yes.
I don't think anyone's seen the like of this, certainly in modern history. Is this tempo going to continue, first of all?
Yes, it is. Lou, it is a spectacular day here at the White House with President Trump making good on his campaign promises, particularly when it comes to immigration, which he very boldly and consistently made a centerpiece of his campaign against a hail of criticism from every corner, including in his own party sometime. And why did he do it? Because he wants to put America first. And when you look at these 2 executive orders about constructing that physical wall on the southern border, allowing the tools and resources to be given to our brave men and women in uniform and law enforcement, those agents across the border, expanding the detention area so that when illegals are caught, we don't have this catch and release program. We have this catch and deal with program. It really is just such an exciting day here. And then, of course, the sanctuary cities. I think Kate Steinle is a household name across this country because of people like you and Donald Trump. And thank you for that. People know no good comes out of harboring illegals who have been deported time and time again, some of whom have committed crimes in these sanctuary cities, putting others at risk. It's such an exciting day here, but the pace and the tempo is all Donald Trump. People saw that during the campaign, and now as president, he's continued doing it. My big joke around here is that everything in Trump world happens according to dog years. You have to multiply it by 7. And there's no end in sight to this incredible pace and excitement. He's not just changing the tone here in Washington, he's changing the content and the fluidity.
And I think, frankly, the national left-wing media in particular is taken aback watching them in the White House briefing room. Those are people searching for questions and trying, apparently, not to repeat one another, but sort of clucking about some of the orders, particularly, for example, building the wall, asking, well, you're going to have Mexico pay for that. Focused on that part of the question rather than the reality that the President of the United States has signed an order saying move ahead with the wall. It's really something to watch.
I've noticed two things with the mainstream media here, Lou, that maybe doesn't get a lot of coverage. Number one is even those who have been against the president are giving a great deal of grudging respect for him keeping all of these promises and doing things very quickly as he said he would. Number two, they're trying to get really steeped in some policies that maybe people didn't pay much attention to during the campaign. They figured, hey, typical politicians make campaign promises. I don't need to learn the policies. Now everybody has to do their homework and play catch up because there are very specific measures here. You know, typical politicians make promises during a campaign. Businessmen who deliver and are held accountable and produce results and are master negotiators and consensus builders and connectors and communicators like Donald Trump, they don't make promises, they put forth plans. And it's just a matter of him executing the plan now. Look, the public is responding, Lou, after all the mainstream media calling his inaugural address dark and gloomy and spooky and foreboding. It looks to me like in the Morning Consult poll this morning, 65% of Americans say they like the America First theme, and 51% said that Donald Trump's speech was, quote, optimistic. They're giving him a chance.
Yeah, and those who find darkness in this explosion of light in Washington, D.C. Have to be in a far corner of the left, I think, to be making that, coming to that conclusion. A couple of things to take up very quickly, if I may. And that is the president will meet with Peña Nieto next Tuesday. The Mexican government has said that they will withdraw from NAFTA if payment is demanded for the wall, which they said they will not pay for. And it seems like we're watching a very adolescent response on a government that really doesn't seem to understand that President Trump is asking for a mature and responsible relationship between the two governments and shared responsibility for the security of that mutual border. No more than that, really.
Yes, and Donald Trump, as candidate, as president-elect, and now as president of the United States, Lou, has never changed his tune on that. He's been very consistent, so I think he leaves no doubt as to what his position is on behalf of our country. We're very happy the Mexican officials are coming here. That's productive. Certainly Donald Trump as a candidate went to Mexico when he was invited. Hillary Clinton rebuffed the invitation, as you'll recall. And it was a big moment. But remember what candidate Trump did that day. He went and met with the Mexican president, and then he flew right to Arizona and delivered a barn burner of a 10-point immigration plan, much of which he's trying to implement now. So we're glad they're coming here to have a conversation. As Donald Trump said in his inaugural address, Lou, that we have spent billions of dollars in this nation protecting other countries' sovereignty and their borders. It's high time we do that for our own people. And that message will be the same whether he's delivering it to you and me and the rest of America, or he's delivering it to the Mexican officials.
And as we wrap up here, Kellyanne, are you confident that on this very day that the president will win all of his nominees their confirmation?
He should, because they're incredibly qualified men and women who are willing to serve their nation at the highest levels. We don't detect much trouble for any of them. Some of them have their votes delayed. Some of them are being asked for additional paperwork. That's fine. That's the democratic process. But we hope the objections to them are legitimate and are substantive and not just some political show designed to humiliate any of them. The cabinet that has been approved so far is really just remarkable. You saw him today swear in General Kelly as the head of Department of Homeland Security, a very important department to this president, given everything he wants to tackle. And we really hope that these numbers start to pick up, because it's nowhere near what the Senate did for President George W. Bush, President Barack Obama. The numbers are really lagging behind. We have great confidence in our nominees, and we have confidence that the Senate will allow this president to have his full cabinet in place very soon.
And Kellyanne, we should take note also that Mayor Rahm Emanuel of Chicago, a mayor who has utterly failed to protect his people and to come up with a solution to rampant violence, record homicides last year and shootings, and by the way, on pace this year to do even worse, has accepted the president's offer of help to eliminate the violence in that great city and to bring law and order. So I think that a lot of people who might be considering those votes right now are watching this president again prevail on a very important issue, one that's important to all of the people of this country.
It is. It is, and I think there have been over 1,000 shootings in 2016, 762 murders in Chicago, and 2017, as you note, is already on pace to keep track with that crime wave. This is what Donald Trump meant in his inaugural address as president, Lou, when he said American carnage. When he talks about the drugs and the violence and the gangs, you don't need look no further than Chicago. We're glad that the Democratic mayor and former chief of staff right here at the White House under President Obama, Rahm Emanuel, has accepted the president's help. I think what leaders do, and President Trump is a natural leader, what leaders do is they don't look at the party affiliation of the mayor. They don't look at the way that the state or the city voted in this last presidential election. They give voice and visibility to problems that are wrecking our inner cities. And he's made very clear he will be president to all Americans. I think going and helping in Chicago is a great place to start.
And I think most Americans would agree with you absolutely. Kellyanne Conway, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, Lou. Thank you.
Thank you. We're coming right back. A lot more to cover here tonight. As always, stay with us. President Trump today assured protection and security for all Americans.
There is no place for politics. No Republicans, no Democrats. We want safe communities, and we demand safe communities for everyone.
Republican strategist David Avella joins me here next. President Trump today signed 2 executive orders, one to build the wall on our southern border, the other to end sanctuary cities. Next, we take up the president's rapid action to fulfill his promises to the American people. We're coming right back. Stay with us. President Trump today called out the national left-wing media for ignoring the dangers of open borders.
For years, the media has largely ignored the stories of Americans and lawful residents victimized by open borders. To all of those hurting out there, I repeat to you these words. We hear you, we see you, and you will never, ever be ignored again.
President Trump. Joining me now, the chairman of GOPAC, Republican strategist David Avella. David has worked directly with some of the Trump cabinet nominees, including Senator Sessions, Congressman Tom Price, former Governor Rick Perry, CEO and businessman Andy Puzder, and Attorney General of Oklahoma, former Scott Pruitt. Good to have you with us, David.
Glad to be here.
Let's start with, if we may, the president who is fulfilling promises through his executive orders, the actions he's taking, the meetings he's holding, the agenda he's setting, faster than any president that I'm aware of in history.
He is delivering on what Americans elected him to do, which was focus on their personal and economic security.
I'm laughing as you say that because I'm thinking we've elected a lot of presidents and assumed that in doing so that they would do what we elected them to do, only to great disappointment with almost all. This president has got to have establishment Washington on its heels.
Certainly does, but he also has a Republican Congress that has been waiting for a president like this. A president who's ready to give states more control over things like health care, like education, key areas that state governments are far more effective at finding solutions for. They've been waiting for a president that will do things like Keystone Pipeline, who want to end Obamacare. President Trump is going to find good allies in the Republican Senate and the Republican House, as we've seen. Mm-hmm. Look, Paul Ryan, our Speaker, has said things in recent statements that maybe a year ago he was saying, nuancing the policy maybe a little differently, but is now saying, yeah, this is what we're going to do.
And you know what's really great? I haven't heard him say in 3 weeks the words "better way," the title of his agenda. He talks about the president and his agenda, which is appropriate. And for whatever the reason, the motivation, the circumstance, or the cause, I salute the speaker for coming to his senses, and hopefully he will prove to be an ally of a president who's proving in the first week that he is a force to be reckoned with.
Every indication is that. But let me say again, Lou, many of the things the Republicans have been pushing for and wanting are the same policies President Trump pushed during the campaign. Mm-hmm. And now you have both sides of Pennsylvania Avenue ready to do things, as we discussed earlier, to protect people's personal security and economic.
You remember that sign that used to sit on Ronald Reagan's desk in the Oval Office? A lot can be done if you don't care who gets the credit.
That's right.
I think the House and the Senate need to get over themselves a little bit, just a little bit at this point, at least the leadership of both, to see that we do get done what the president is already demonstrating he can do, which is unprecedented. The pipeline, you mentioned the pipeline. I mean, Keystone and Dakota Access. This is moving. I mean, it's in so many ways a no-brainer, but that is not always a consideration in Washington, D.C. This president is doing what the previous resisted doing. Look at this. Look at all these pipelines, if you will, David. These are pipelines that crisscross in spaghetti fashion America. And so much made of it by environmentalists and the previous administration. And don't they look silly when you look at this particular image?
This sends a message to Americans that President Trump is going to be focused on job creation. It sends the message the U.S. steel industry has been wanting for a long time. For those who are unemployed, it sends a great message. But let me also say, it sends a message to Russia and China. Russia, look, you want to be an economic power on energy. America is, and we're going to continue to be. And to China, we are going to revive our steel industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, with all that energy, we got something that you don't have. Well, we've actually got a lot they don't have. David, it's great to have you with us.
Thank
David
you.
Avella, thanks. Come back soon. Be sure to vote in our poll tonight. The question is, do you believe the mostly left-wing White House press corps is simply stunned that President Trump is already making good on so many of his campaign promises? The answers available are, yes, I knew he would, or no, they're a dull bunch. Cast your vote. I know you'll be tempted on which way you go with this. We've created some emotional conflict here, this simple question. Cast your vote on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. We like to hear from you always. And follow me on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. Like me on Facebook. Follow me on Instagram at Lou Dobbs Tonight. On Wall Street, the Trump rally lifting the markets to record highs. The Dow Jones Industrials closing above 20,000 for the first time in history, gaining 156 points today. The S&P also at a record high, up 18 points. The Nasdaq up 55 at a record high. Did I mention a record day on Wall Street? Volume on the big board, 3.8 billion shares. And the Trump presidency inspiring confidence in investors. Obviously, the Dow first hit 19,000 10 days after Donald Trump's victory. Now crossing the 20,000 level 3 trading days after his inauguration. That marks the quickest 1,000-point advance in nearly 17 years. And by the way, the previous 1,000 points on the Dow, it took over 2 years to make that march. A reminder to listen to my reports 3 times a day, coast to coast on the Salem Radio Network. Up next, Democrats have failed the city of Chicago.
Many people living in the inner cities of our country, they're getting worse and worse. The crime is unbelievable. You can't walk to the store and get a loaf of bread. Often you get shot. Chicago, thousands and thousands of shootings since January 1st.
The violence in Chicago in particular has bothered President Trump for the year and a half he campaigned for his office, and he is vowing to change all of that in Chicago. Chicago's crisis, the subject of my commentary tonight, and a little later, the left-wing national media. Those son of a guns claim Trump's call for a voter fraud investigation is baseless. Look at that. A baseless investigation? Well, how in the world? How did CNN banner that story? Well, that's far from the truth. And we'll take up, well, these son-of-a-guns in the national left-wing media and what we can do about it. Stay with us. A few thoughts now on the crisis in Chicago. The state's economy there is struggling. Illinois ranks 45th in the country in unemployment. The unemployment rate in Chicago, not much better, 5.3%. It's above the national average, obviously. 22% of Chicagoans live under the poverty level. 20% of the city's population is on food stamps. All of that sending residents fleeing the city and the state, for that matter. The greater Chicago area saw the greatest population loss of any metropolitan area in 2015. Of course, the city's crime rate playing a large role in that flight. There were 762 homicides in the city last year, an almost 60% increase from 2015. And as shocking as last year's atrocities were, they're now on pace to exceed them this year. President Trump tweeted that he will send in the feds if Chicago doesn't stop what he called the horrible carnage. And it is that, horrible, and it is carnage. The comments come after Mayor Rahm Emanuel slammed the president in his remarks earlier this week. But it appears that Mayor Emanuel has had an epiphany and more than a slight change of heart.
Chicago, like other cities right now that are dealing with gun violence, wants the partnership with federal law enforcement entities in a more significant way than we're having it today. The president has offered and repeated that he wants to offer federal help as it relates to public safety. I'm going to take him up on that offer.
Indeed. Emanuel, however, also vowing Chicago will remain a sanctuary city, his petty defiance of the president's executive order today. But it is only rhetoric, and I don't believe it will rise beyond that. But I do believe it's too late for Mayor Emanuel, who's only proven he is a failure in Chicago. President Trump's right. It is time to put an end to the crisis in Chicago, and Rahm Emanuel might think long and hard about his role in the city's crisis and their failure to come up with a solution. Now, our quotation of the evening, and on a president who does take action and decisively. This from John F. Kennedy, who said, "There are risks and costs to action, but they are far less than the long-range risks of comfortable inaction." We have a president of action. We're coming right back. President Trump today made a pledge to conduct a major probe into voter fraud.
So you've launched an investigation.
We're going to launch an investigation to find out, and then the next time, and I will say this, of those votes cast, none of them come to me. None of them come to me. They would all be for the other side. None of them come to me. But when you look at the people that are registered, dead, illegal, and 2 states, and some cases maybe 3 states, we have a lot to look into.
A lot to look into, and a furor ensued, certainly in the national left-wing media. Mr. Trump has made previous references to a Pew Research study that found 1 in 8 names on voter rolls either inaccurate or no longer valid for whatever the reason. Regardless, the national left-wing media up in arms over an effort to investigate potential voter fraud.
President Trump's unsubstantiated and false claims that millions of people voted illegally. The problem is they have no proof.
Now, that is, of course, because no such tangible evidence of widespread voter fraud exists, according to Republican and Democratic election officials all across the country. It did not happen.
Baseless, false, inaccurate claims of voter fraud.
A deliberate effort by what is now the United States government to lie and confuse.
What in the world is that? Why would Donald Trump do this?
I particularly like, why in the world would Donald Trump? I guess to find out if there's voter fraud. That's just me guessing. And joining me now, opinion editor of the Washington Times, Charlie Hurt, attorney and political analyst, Gail Trotter. Great to have you both here. Do they protest too much, Gail? I mean, this is remarkable. He wants to find out if our electoral system is working properly, whether we're being defrauded, and whether there is some rigging of the system.
That's right. Why are they so exercised? I mean, the truth is that this is a very important issue, and that's why they care about it so much. And they are, doubling down on this information that they're trying to put out there. But the truth is that voter fraud is rampant in our country. And the fact that they're going for voter IDs and saying that somehow that's racist shows that how ridiculous their argument is.
It's remarkable. Charlie, your reaction to all this?
Well, it sort of boggles the mind that all these people would come out and just insist that, well, there's nothing to see here, nothing wrong, move along. When, of course, we hear dozens and hundreds of stories every election of individual cases where people do things that are at the very least very highly questionable. The most recently in November we had that audit of the Michigan results, right, where it found that the number of ballots that were supposed to be in the secure boxes didn't even amount to the discrepancy between the two candidates running. So there are real issues here. There's absolutely no doubt about it. And for all the efforts by Democrats to refuse to go along with basic, election security, like things like requiring people to produce identification in order to cast a ballot, which, of course, you have to produce identification in order to rent a pair of bowling shoes. So I don't really understand. I don't understand why it's such a big deal.
Yeah, and it's rather patronizing, condescending, and oh my gosh, who would ever dream I'm describing the Democrats here, to minority constituents to suggest, well, for some reason they're at a severe disadvantage to do what every other citizen does. I mean, it's palpable ignorance on the part of the left-wing media. I mean, to watch those reporters or those anchors, to gin themselves up into hysteria and say, this is false.
Well, and
false?
They had to appeal to Republican politicians, too. Did you notice that? One of the commentators said, well, Republicans agree this is not an issue.
Well, establishment Republicans might. Charlie, your judgment on how fast this president is moving?
Oh, it's pretty incredible. I mean, I had no doubt that he would come out of the gate at quite a clip. But what he did today just on immigration, he has done more to enforce immigration laws in this country than any president in the past 16 years. He did it in one day, and it is absolutely amazing. And the big neon welcome sign that President Obama has put up over the past 8 years that has led to untold misery, all of these illegals streaming across the border, the rapes and murders and drug smuggling that has occurred because of that neon sign that he's put up. Donald Trump turned that neon sign off, and he put up a different sign that said, look, don't come. And that by itself is more than any president has done in 16 years.
That is a big sign that's flashing in lots of quarters in our society now, not just at the border. Respect. Respect for this country and for these American people. Very quickly, we got about 15 seconds. The president is making his choice on the Supreme Court justice, the nominee, who will go to, hopefully will go to fill Justice Scalia's seat. Your thoughts?
Right. Well, he had a list that was vetted by two very trustworthy and reputable conservative organizations. And I think he's going to pick probably just Judge Pryor from Alabama.
All right. Well, we've got you on the record, Charlie. We'll remember every word she uttered.
That's right. And you don't have me on the record, which I'm glad for.
Well, very quickly.
Oh, I would never make a prediction, but it's going to be a great fight.
What fun are you?
And he is going to teach these Republicans how to fight over judicial nominations, and he's going to win, and it's going to be very good for America.
Amen. Charlie, thanks for being with us. Gail, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Well, joining me now, national spokesperson for the Congress on Racial Equality and conservative commentator, Niger Ennis. Niger, it is great to see you, my friend.
Good to be with you, Lou.
This is an extraordinary day in that Rahm Emanuel, the mayor of Chicago, who had, first of all, flailed and throughout these years as mayor on all the violence in Chicago, and suddenly has said, now after talking big and playing all of the talking points from the left, that he will take Donald Trump's help and that of the federal government to solve the crisis in Chicago.
Lou, you got to be kidding me. This guy left the Obama White House in 2010, became mayor in 2011, and at that time, the number of killings per year, murders per year, were 435, 436 per year.
Right.
Now, 762 last year. That's up over 60% throughout his mayoralty. And while he was mayor, who was president of the United States in charge of the federal government? His former boss. And now he wakes up and says he wants federal help, he wants federal assistance. You got to be kidding me.
You know, one of the great things about this president that he has demonstrated, because he said so on the campaign trail, this was personal to him.
Yes.
He is offended by what he called the carnage.
Yep.
And it's as if the left in this country, the Obama administration, the Democratic Party in Chicago, Cook County, and Illinois, all decided, you know, these are just collateral damage to our great liberal policies. It's madness.
You know, for those who talk about lives mattering, don't those 762 lives that were murdered in Chicago, don't they matter?
And, you know, absolutely. And to hear Rahm Emanuel say if the federal government will help us with guns and gangs.
Oh, give me a break.
Guns and gangs. He's got this one of, if not the
toughest gun control. That's right.
Gun ordinances in the country, and he's playing games with rhetoric instead of saying thank you. I mean, Rahm Emanuel, in my opinion, should just step down, get out of the way. Lead, follow, or get out of the way. He needs to get out of the way.
No question about it. He is symbolic of a leadership class in Chicago that has allowed this carnage to take place for far too long, for years, certainly maybe decades, and needs to be just swept away. The beauty of the Donald Trump presidency and the new era that we're in is that it's a sweeping out of the old, bringing in of the new.
And to put in full context, I mean, what in the world is going on with the power structure of the inner city in Chicago? That is, the black churches, the black politicians.
Oh, yes.
This is... the city of Chicago's got to take a hard look at what they're doing.
Absolutely. And the church is a backbone, but they got to answer some tough questions.
Absolutely. And when we need tough questions answered, we always call on Niger. Thanks for being here. It's great to see you.
Lou. Good to
Thanks
see
so
you
much, Niger Ennis. Up next, the British elite's efforts to block Brexit could have dangerous, not just serious, dangerous repercussions.
If they attempt to stop Brexit, there will be. The very gentle English will revolt in the most extraordinary way.
The man behind Brexit, Nigel Farage, joins me here next. Stay with us. We'll be right back. In our online poll, we ask you, would you keep James Comey as FBI director? Quite a division in our audience on this one, as we suspected. 58% of you said no, and 42% yes. And the division is interesting because I think a lot of people, at least on social media, express confidence in whatever the president judges is appropriate. They've got confidence in. So the honeymoon, at least with the American people, is still underway. The British government will be introducing legislation tomorrow seeking Parliament's approval to begin the formal process to exit the European Union. Prime Minister Theresa May also announcing she will publish a white paper detailing the government's negotiation strategy for Brexit. The Supreme Court yesterday ruled that Parliament must decide whether the government can invoke Article 50 of the Lisbon Treaty to leave the European Union. That triggers the two-year process of exiting the EU. Our next guest is the man who led the independence movement, Brexit. He says if the UK Parliament were to reverse last year's Brexit vote, it would trigger a revolt by the UK people. Joining me now, former leader of the UK Independence Party, Nigel Farage, now a Fox News contributor, and we are delighted that you are, Nigel. And thanks for being with us. Let's start to, I mean, is it possible that Parliament would be so rash as to tell the British people, the hell with your referendum, and we're going to do what we know to be best?
Well, I'm very angry about the whole thing because, you know, the government sent a leaflet to every house in the United Kingdom saying, this is your referendum. You make a decision, we will implement it. And now, through legal means and trickery and chicanery, this decision goes back to Parliament. I have to say that those that voted to leave now believe it more strongly than even they did back on June 23rd last year. And if this Parliament was stupid enough to try to dilute or delay Brexit, they'd pay a very heavy price. So to be honest, I'm optimistic that the legislation will get through, but it's yet more delay, it's yet more cost, and I'm not happy about it.
You can't be happy either with a group of elites that you all style as your Supreme Court. I mean, it flies in the face of reason as well as law, as I understand it. I mean, first of all, to have a situation in which a court, the judicial, can decide that the